If you are 50 years old right now and your retirement account says zero, your first thought was probably something like this: I am too far behind to fix this. Everyone else has been investing since their 20s. I am the only one starting from nothing. Here is the uncomfortable truth nobody at your job wants to say out loud. That thought is wrong, and it is wrong in a way that is easy to prove with data, not vibes. The Center for Retirement Research at Boston College looked at the Federal Reserve's own numbers on American households, and here is what they found. Only about half of working households between 55 and 64 have any 401k or IRA at all. Not a small balance, any balance. Half of the people close to retirement have nothing saved in a retirement account, and you are not seeing their story on YouTube because nobody makes a video bragging about zero. So today we are going to do three things. First, I'm going to show you the real data on who is actually behind, and it is probably not you. Second, I'm going to show you a piece of the 2026 tax code built specifically to help people who start late, one most 50-year-olds have never heard of. And third, I'm going to give you one formula using your own numbers that tells you exactly what a zero-to-something plan could realistically grow into by the time you retire. Stick around, because that third part alone is going to change how you feel about the number sitting in your account right now. Let's start with the data, because this channel does not do vibes, it does math you can check yourself. I am calling this the half of every one truth, and once you understand it, the shame around a zero balance mostly disappears. The Center for Retirement Research found that only about half of households aged 55 to 64 hold any 401k or IRA money. Their own retirement risk index goes further. 39% of all working age households in America are on track to fall short of maintaining their current standard of living once they retire. That works out to roughly 2 out of every 5 working households in the country, and plenty of them have been investing the whole time. Now here's where it gets interesting. The Federal Reserve's 2022 Survey of Consumer Finances, the most recent one available, found that among people who do have a retirement account at any age, the median balance was $86,900. The average was $334,000. Read those two numbers again. The average is almost 4 times the median. That gap exists because a small number of very large accounts drag the average way up, while most real households sit far below it. This is the exact mistake almost everyone makes, comparing your real number to a headline average instead of a median, and feeling behind because of it. Vanguard's 2026 report on how America saves confirms the same pattern inside actual 401k plans. Average account balance, a record $167,970. Median balance, $44,115. So the next time a headline tells you the average American has a certain amount saved, remember that word, average. It is being pulled upward by a small group of people with 7-figure balances. And here's the twist that actually caught me off guard when I found it. The age group with the highest rate of $1 million plus retirement accounts is not people in their 30s who started early. It is people 55 to 64 at 9.2%, according to the Congressional Research Service's analysis of that same Fed survey. A small group of late career savers is sitting on 7 figures, and their numbers are baked into every average you are comparing yourself against. You are not being compared to normal people. You are being compared to a mixture of normal people and a wealthy minority, and that math makes you feel worse than the reality actually is. Part of why this happens is not laziness, it is arithmetic most people never see written out. The Bureau of Economic Analysis reported the personal saving rate at just 3% in May of 2026, an unusually low number that shows how little the average household currently has left over to invest at all. On top of that, Experian's most recent consumer debt study found that Generation X, roughly ages 45 to 60, carries the highest average credit card balance of any generation, $9,600, up about $2,600 in just 3 years. If you are 50 and have zero saved, there is a very good chance debt and a thin margin between income and expenses explains most of it, not a lack of trying. But knowing you are not alone does not pay your electric bill in retirement. The real question is whether zero at 50 can turn into something real by the time you stop working. And that is where 2026 tax rules matter more than most 50-year-olds realize. Let's fix that. The IRS just handed late starters one of the most generous tools it has ever offered, and I am calling it the super catch-up window, because that is exactly what it is, a window, and it only stays open for 4 specific years of your life. Here is how 2026's contribution limits work, straight from IRS. Notice 2025-67. If you are 50 or older, you can put $24,500 into a workplace plan like a 401k, plus an extra $8,000 catch-up contribution for a total of $32,500 a year. sheltered from current income tax. But if you are specifically 60 to 63 years old, thanks to a rule from the Secure 2.0 Act, that catch-up jumps to $11,250, pushing your total allowed contribution to $35,750 in a single year. That 4-year window, ages 60 to 63, is about as good as tax advantage saving gets for a normal employee. And almost nobody uses it, because almost nobody knows it exists. During that 60 to 63 window specifically, stack an IRA on top of the workplace plan, and you can push total tax-sheltered contributions above $44,000 in a single year, using rules that already exist and require no special account or advisor to access. Even outside that 4-year window, a 50-year-old stacking a workplace plan and an IRA can still shelter around $41,000 a year. That is a real edge, one the government built specifically for people starting late, and most 50-year-olds have simply never been told it is there. Contributing that much matters, but where that money goes matters just as much. And that is where the second piece of this puzzle comes in. One that lets you collect real income from your investments and pay the IRS nothing on it. Let's get into that. This next part sounds like a trick, but it is written directly into the tax code, and I am calling it the 0% bracket. Under IRS Revenue Procedure 2025-32, qualified dividends, meaning dividends from most regular stocks and dividend-focused ETFs, are taxed at 0% federal rate if your total taxable income falls below $49,450 as a single filer, or $98,900 if you are married filing jointly. 0. Not a lower rate. 0. This is exactly why dividend investing fits a late starter so well. It generates income that grows over time, and for a huge number of retirees, it is income the federal government legally cannot touch. One caveat this audience always catches, so let's handle it now. REIT dividends, the kind you get from real estate investment trusts like Realty Income, generally do not qualify for that 0% rate, because the law requires REITs to distribute at least 90% of their taxable income as dividends under IRC Section 857, and most of that income comes through as ordinary income, taxed at your regular rate. So REITs can be a great source of high yield. Realty Income currently yields a bit above 5% and has paid a dividend every single month for over 5 decades straight. But do not assume that income gets the same 0% tax treatment as a dividend from something like SCHD, the Schwab U.S. Dividend Equity ETF, currently yielding around 3.33% as of July 1st, 2026. So now you have two real levers: how much you can legally shelter each year and how that income gets taxed once you're collecting it. Let's put a number on what that actually builds by the time you retire, using a formula you can run with your own numbers right now. Here's the formula, and I am calling it the 486 rule, because that one number is going to do almost all the work. To build this, I use the same long-run number Hartford Funds and Ned Davis Research have tracked going back to 1973. Stocks that grow or start paying dividends have compounded at 10.22% a year on average, all the way through the end of 2025. That is historical, not a promise, and real returns will bounce around year to year, but it is the best long-run number available for this kind of math. If you are 50 years old today, you have 17 years until the standard full retirement age of 67. Run 17 years of compounding at roughly 10% a year, and here is what $1 of monthly contribution turns into by then: $486. That is the 486 rule. Take whatever you can realistically invest every month, multiply it by 486, and that is roughly what it could grow into by the time you hit 67, assuming markets behave the way they have on average for the last 50 years. Let's run 3 real scenarios because your number might look completely different from your neighbors, and that is fine. Scenario 1. You can only invest $500 a month right now because life is expensive and this is genuinely all you have. 500 times 486 is $243,000 by age 67. Put that into something like SCHD, and at that same 3.33% yield, it throws off about $8,000 a year, or roughly $670 a month in dividend income alone, on top of whatever else you have coming in. Scenario 2. You can invest $1,500 a month, a stretch for a lot of households, but realistic for a dual income family cutting back elsewhere. 1,500 times 486 is roughly $730,000 by 67. At the same 3.33% yield, that is about $24,000 a year, or $2,000 a month in dividend income. Scenario 3, and this is the one most people never run. You max out. The super catch-up window from earlier, $32,500 a year from 50 to 59, $35,750 a year during the 60 to 63 window, then back to $32,500 through 67. Run that through the same compounding math, and you land around $1.5 million by age 67. At 3.33%, that throws off right around $50,000 a year in dividend income, which sits almost exactly on the line of that 0% bracket for a single filer, meaning if you are married filing jointly, virtually all of it goes untouched by federal tax. That happens because the contribution limits and the tax brackets were built by the same government in the same tax code, not because of some coincidence you have to force. Now let's put this whole video back together, because there was a lot of math in the last few minutes, and this channel would rather you actually remember it than just nod along. Here is everything again, in order. The half of every one truth. Only about half of households 55 to 64 have any 401k or IRA at all, and 39% of working households are on track to fall short in retirement, so a zero balance at 50 puts you in the same room as an enormous number of other people, not a rare, embarrassing minority. The averages you compare yourself to are inflated by a small group, about 9% of that age bracket, sitting on seven-figure balances. The super catch-up window. At 50, you can shelter $32,500 a year in a workplace plan. From 60 to 63, that jumps to $35,750. Stack an IRA during that window, and you can push total shelter past $44,000 a year, using rules the IRS already has on the books for 2026. The 0% bracket. Qualified dividend income is taxed at 0% federal rate up to $49,450 single, or $98,900 married. Though REIT dividends generally do not qualify for that treatment because of the 90% distribution rule REITs operate under. And the 486 rule. Take your monthly contribution, multiply by 486, and that is roughly what 17 years of historical compounding could grow it into by 67, whether that number is $243,000, $730,000, or $1.5 million. So here's my question for you, and I actually want you to answer it in the comments, not just think about it. Which scenario is closest to your real number right now? The $500 a month, the $1,500 a month, or are you actually in a position to chase the super catch-up window? Put your honest number in the comments. This channel's whole audience is people figuring this out in real time, and seeing someone else's real number tends to help more than another generic success story. If you already know you want dividend income doing the heavy lifting here, the next question is, which fund actually earns a spot in that account? I already broke that down in the best ETFs to live off dividends in America, where I walk through exactly which funds make sense at which stage, using the same kind of real math we just used here. Go watch that one next, because a formula is only useful once you know where the money is actually going. Your first thought, when you saw a zero balance at 50, was that you were too far behind to fix this. You were not. You were behind the wrong story, an average built by a small group of people with seven-figure accounts and a fear that nobody bothered to check against the actual numbers. Now you have the half of every one truth, the super catch-up window, the 0% bracket, and the 486 rule. The math was always fixable. You just never had it in front of you until now.